BorgWarner EFR8474 Black Series. What's the difference between the Predecessor 8374 and the Black Series? Let's delve into the EFR series of 1000 horsepower turbochargers. Hey everybody, welcome back. Here's another awesome video for you. Today we're talking EFR8474 Black Series. What's the difference between the Predecessor 8374 and the 8474? Well, the compressor wheel's black. And because BorgWarner anodized the wheel black, it makes 150 horsepower more. Right, that's the end of the video. See you guys next time. There's quite a big difference. Although the rotating assemblies are very, very similar in size, there's a 1 mil difference. In terms of the X-juicer of the compressor wheel, the turbine side is exactly the same, but the aero design on the compressor wheel is completely different, which takes you from a previous 750 horsepower capable 75 pound per minute of airflow up to a 950 horsepower capable 95 pound per minute of airflow turbocharger. This specific turbo is a direct competitor to your Garrett G-series, not the G-series, because as you guys might or might not know, the Garrett compressor maps are overrated by about 10 to 15%. So where you'll see a 1050 horsepower capable claim on a Garrett compressor map, they actually only make around 900, maybe 950 horsepower. So this is a head-on comparison to your G35 1050, your GTX 3584 RS, and your Black Series is completely different in terms of the aerodynamic designs of the compressor stage compared to the previous 8374, as I've just mentioned. The turbocharger comes in two guises, internally gated and free floating or externally gated, and the only difference is the turbine housing. You get two different options in terms of your bearing housing material. One is made from aluminium, one is made from iron, as they term it, or cast iron, or high nickel content casting. And you have a nice range of ARs on your turbine housings, from T3 inlet face, T4 inlet face, and obviously your V-band out. Your internally gated options run a 42 millimeter swing valve, which is nice and big. You've got nice options with regards to a low, a medium boost, and a high boost actuator spring rate, all the way up to 33 psi. And you're able to boost from 4 psi up to 33, depending on which spring rate you choose. The turbochargers include a diverter valve, a boost control solenoid, and obviously a pre-machined speed sensor port, which is not drilled all the way through. You need to just drill that last millimeter or so, install your speed sensor, and obviously connect up a TSG1, which is your turbo speed gauge, a digital gauge that's available specifically for and set up and pre-programmed for your EFR and Airworks range of turbochargers. Okay guys, so what we've basically got is a couple of different views. This specific turbine housing over here is your T3 option. That's your T3 inlet face with a V-band out. This is a 76 millimeter V-band or 3-inch. There is your 42 millimeter swing valve. This is obviously a single port housing. It's not a twin scroll. What I want to talk about is the turbine design on the EFR series. It features a solid disc back, and the material is made from gamma tire or titanium aluminide. This specific wheel will weigh 35 to 40% less than any Inconel wheel. Size for size is very similar to your Garrett G35 1050, and it is a lot lighter. The reason you're using a solid disc back is because the design internal to the turbine housing is essentially a mixed flow design, what they term a mixed flow. Now, it's a controversial topic, but what they basically relate to is the fact that there's a difference between a full radial and a full axial turbocharger in terms of the gas path direction coming into contact with the inducer blades of the turbine. I'll just put a little picture on your screen now showing you a true radial design and an axial design, which is essentially a jet engine or a jet turbine style, and a mixed flow design. So there are the three little pictures on your screen now. And what you'll find is the internal structure of the turbine housing just before the inducer blades is such that the gas is directed at an upward path. Now, if you look at the turbocharger that I'm holding now, the gas is directed, yes, radially, but as it comes into contact with the inducer blades, it's directed at an upward angle, which is essentially between full radial and full axial. That's the reason it's termed mixed flow. This specific turbocharger here has got your iron housing. This specific one over here, which is extremely light, features your aluminium bearing housing. Same turbine design, same compressor housing, and there is your black anodized 7-blade billet compressor with extended tip, fully machined intake tract, speed sensor port, diverter valve, boost control solenoid, and V-band connection on your compressor housing. The water jackets in these turbochargers, both aluminium and iron, are extremely large. If you haven't seen my previous video where we actually compare the individual components side by side to the Garrett product, go and have a look at that. I'll post links in the comment section below. You guys can go and have a look at that. I believe you will learn something really, really interesting, especially about the water jackets and the cooling of the EFR range of turbochargers in comparison to anyone else. Next, I've got a turbine housing, which is a twin scroll housing. It's actually a beautiful design. If you look at the actual scrolls, the one seems to be slightly smaller than the other. However, they're not. The internal structure and the actual volume of both of these is exactly the same. But from externally, it looks like this one is larger, or a larger diameter than the inside volute. It's T4 inlet flange, 76 millimeter V-band outlet, 42 millimeter internal swing valve, and obviously stainless steel. This is a twin port flow housing on your internal structure. So you're actually taking your boost control from two ports. You've got a feed from both scrolls feeding the swing valve, which obviously when it opens will regulate and normalize the pressure, back pressure in both of the scrolls equally. These turbochargers are supplied, as I've mentioned, internally gated or free floating. I don't have a free floating housing on the table at the moment, but you do get an external gate turbine housing where you're obviously not going to be running an actuator. The next question is, where's the actuator? Well, that's the beauty about these. You can actually put together your own list of hardware in terms of your build or relating to your build. So if you want a low boost setup, you choose a specific actuator for that, medium boost or high boost, and then obviously you have your bracketry to suit, and obviously you have a hardware installation pack as well. Now the reason Borg have done that is because with an aluminium bearing housing, you need to have the specific installation pack, hardware installation pack that comes with the turbocharger for your aluminium bearing housing, which has got a little plate which is essentially a load distribution plate, which will prevent the housing from fretting and losing the preload holding the turbine housing on, and obviously catastrophic failure as a result thereof. And obviously on your cast iron or your iron type housing, you'll have a different hardware installation pack. Now the nice thing about it is it includes all of your V-band flanges, clamps, inlet fittings where you don't have an inlet fitting, as well as the bolts and the clamping plates. And in the case of the aluminium bearing housing, you'll have your load distribution plates which sit between your bearing housing and your clamping plates, and obviously holding the turbine housing on. That is the EFR8474. So what I want to show you guys here now is, this is obviously a cutout of one of the TurboDirect stainless housings. And obviously this is the gas path. But if you have a look at this profile over here, as the volute narrows just before the inducer blades, this is called the tongue, and obviously your inducer blades operate around this machined radius profile here. As the gases are directed just before the tongue, or just through the tongue to the inducer blades, you'll actually see that the path levels out and it lies horizontal. And that's basically a pure radial design, as we just depicted with those pictures a few seconds ago. If this profile was at an angle, an upward angle coming towards you, let's say at a 45-degree angle, all the way around to the actual tongue, that would be termed as a mixed flow angle gas path. And that's pretty much what you're going to start seeing with the BorgWarner turbine housing. If you have a look at the angle of the volute coming in around the tongue to the radius profile, you'll actually see that that angle there is at quite a sharp angle in relation to the inducer blades of the turbine. So I'm not sure if the camera can get that. I want to delve a little bit into the compressor map now so I can give you guys a good understanding of exactly what this turbocharger can do, and you'll have an idea of where you can piece this together with what sort of size engines and what kind of horsepower you can expect at what sort of boost pressures, and obviously what rotational speeds the turbocharger runs at in comparison to some of the others on the market today. Here's the compressor map for the 8474 Black Series. What I wanted to do is just go over the basics once again, like I normally do when I go and review or take a look at a compressor map for any turbocharger. First of all, that there is your atmospheric pressure. It is 1 bar atmospheric at the coast, at sea level, and 0 gauge pressure. That is 0.4 bar, 0.8 bar gauge pressure, 1.2 bar gauge pressure, 1.6 bar gauge pressure, 2 bar gauge pressure, etc. Maximum boost where you are at the limit of the compressor map is 3.6 bar gauge pressure, which is really, really high. And you're sitting at approximately 127,000 RPM, provided you don't have any boost leaks. At 2 bar, you have got a rotational speed of just under 104,000 RPM, which is really, really low. Your maximum efficiency is at 75% efficiency over there, and that efficiency island starts at approximately 0.8 bar boost, which is approximately there, and it will end, I'm talking about the 75% efficiency island, will end at approximately 1.8 bar boost. So you go from 0.8 to 1.8 bar boost inside of the maximum efficiency island, which is 1 bar worth of usable efficiency, if it makes any sense to you. And at the beginning of your 75% efficiency island, you will be flowing just above 40 pounds per minute of airflow at 0.8 bar boost, which is approximately 405 horsepower, whatever the case might be. And at the top of the maximum efficiency island, you're flowing 625 horsepower approximately at 1.8 bar boost. And you should start to see maximum power from this turbocharger, which is about 950 horsepower, at around about 1.8 bar boost, which is approximately that point over there. And you only start to lose power really, really slightly at approximately 2.6 bar boost. So from a point of 1.8 to 2.6 bar boost, you've got quite a nice usable range, and at 2.6 bar boost, you've only lost probably 5 pounds per minute of airflow, not even 2 pounds. So you're still going to be making 950 horse, probably 940 horsepower. And you know, when you start getting to around 3.2 bar boost, you're still making 900 horsepower. So you know, from 3.2 bar to 1.8 bar, it's a really, really high usable range, and it gives you a lot of options in terms of sizes of engines that this turbocharger can be used on. Now let's have a look at how wide this is. So let's say, for example, you're going to be boosting 2 bar boost. You can start making horsepower from around about 350, 360 horsepower, which is that point over there, all the way up to 950 horsepower. That's at 2 bar. So you know, it's a nice wide range, and you don't lose much efficiency as you start increasing up into the higher P to C ratios as you increase your boost pressure. For any turbocharged application, engine size 2 litre upwards, or 1.6 litre high revving engine upwards, this is a perfect turbocharger. It will respond nicely. It'll give you the low down response that you need on a 2 litre engine, maybe even a 2.2, or let's say you stroked a Mitsubishi Evo to 2.2, 2.4 litre. This would be a great turbocharger, great linear response, good punch response for a circuit racer, and in a higher RPM range, you'll be able to make some nice power for those long rolling runs or top end runs. Right guys, so that's the gist on the 8474 Black. I didn't delve too much into the 8374. I did however mention that there's a really small difference in terms, or 1mm difference in terms of the rotating assembly design, or outside diameter, should I say. But the flow rate of the Black series, indicative of obviously the Black compressor wheel, is a lot more. It's a great rock solid 1000 horsepower capable setup. You will probably see closer to 940, 950 wheel horsepower with these turbochargers. From experience, what we've seen on the EFR range is whatever they claim in the horsepower bracket, we actually start to see at the wheels. So they are quite conservative with their horsepower claims. But for a all-round 950 to 1000 horsepower capable turbocharger, this is an absolute great option. Great spool, nice AR options in terms of the turbine housings, nice inlet flange faces, different spring rate actuators will give you a low, medium and high boost option, aluminium bearing housing, iron bearing housing. It's a really, really great product. Fast spooling, punch response, good for a circuit car, good for a drag car, an everyday street car. EFR is something you should really look at. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Like, subscribe, comment down below, please. Catch you guys next time.